So, everybody said Chris Watts was a really nice guy. Lovely dad, loving husband, quiet, unassuming, compliant. And I think George Carlin was the one who said, it's the quiet ones you've got to watch. And I think Chris Watts is a very good example of that. He has all his life made a very good job of convincing everybody that he is what they need him to be. He convinced his parents, who are so convinced he's wonderful, that they are now having real trouble, very apparent real trouble, reconciling what he's done. He convinced Shanann's parents, who even when they were convinced there was foul play and that Chris was involved, that he'd just been acting weird, was the worst thing they had to say about him. Even when they were saying, I think he's done something, they still couldn't say, well, because he's been an arsehole for years, because he hadn't been. And you can see the sort of behaviour coming with the mistress as well. But so why do I think he planned the murders? Especially when the end of the murders and the tail end was so poor, so badly executed that he was so obviously guilty. He just fell right into a hole. Well, there is a reason, and I'm going to go through that with you now. It's primarily to do with his personality and who he is, and how for years he'd convinced everybody he was Mr. Nice Guy. Now, obviously, we know that's not the case, but how are his actions showing us that this wasn't something where, as many people have said, he just flew into a rage and strangled Shanann and killed the babies and in a fit of rage because they had an argument? I don't believe that, and I'm going to tell you why I don't believe that, what examples I've got to show that, and also what I think actually happened. So this is going to be the quickest stage in a narcissist's behaviour, and this is the love bombing phase. When Shanann met Chris, she was really low. She'd been really down. She had a number of illnesses, God love her, lupus being one of them, and he was there to support her at the time. He rescued her. She seemed to think he was a hero because he allowed her to sleep on his knee even though he needed a wee. Big hero, eh? But anyway, bless her. She also happily declared on Facebook, he's the best thing that ever happened to her, which is really, really sad in hindsight. We have a recording of Bella that was on Facebook, the oldest of the two daughters, saying, singing "My Daddy is a Hero." There was a lot of admiration. And that was the whole point of the original love bombing, and being there for her, being who she wants him to be rather than who he is, because God knows who he is. I don't think even he knows. He would act that way. He acted compliant, he acted obedient. She said, I can tell him to do anything on Facebook, and people have ripped her to shreds for that, but that's the way he acted. He would do what Shanann asked him to do. Now, the reason that he did that was entirely self-serving, so he did get this admiration and this, respect and love, and oh, how wonderful he is, look what a hero he is, look what he does for me. And I think the stronger Shanann got, the less he got that sort of narcissistic validation. Narcissists are a bit like vampires. Hang on. I don't know if vampire is the right term. It might be a little too sexy. Maybe parasite. for a breed of people. And I will point out that not all narcissists are murderers and not all murderers are narcissists. Chris Watts had a very specific blend of personality types that led to this situation. But he's not the only one. Have a look around at cases, you will find that he's not the only one. But anyway, he had this situation where this admiration and love, the more confidence Shanann gained, the stronger she got, the less he got that validation. And they live off other people. For somebody who thinks so little of everybody else, the narcissist needs that supply. So the supply had stopped. So when Shanann is saying things that she thinks are jokes, like, you know, like, he'll do everything I want him to, and no, I don't want a picture of you, you get out of the way, that people see as denigration, she's just seen as humour. But every time she does that, for Watts, it's a huge insult to his massive ego on the inside. He is looking for, you know, admiration. And I think every time something like that happened, that perceived slight on his part was building up. And then we begin to get to a position where already, because Chris has made himself out to be so wonderful, not only to Shanann but to everybody else, that as part of that process, what he said and how he made out Shanann to be, you know, I need to be home for this time, and I need to clean the garage, and I need to do this, and I need to do the washing, and blah, blah, blah. People around Chris began to think less of Shanann. And this leads into a phase which wasn't quite in the right order, but is sort of the smear campaign. And we're going to talk about that now. So, the supply that he got from Shanann, we've already established, was dwindling, so he moved on to another supply, which was NK. That's the mistress, for anybody who's not familiar with the Watts case jargon. So now begins a systematic devaluation of Shanann and the children. The children were often very clingy for mum. This crops up quite frequently in the discovery. Ronnie mentions that Chris was more snitty with the children than normal, and that he felt maybe that he resented that they were so clingy for the mum, and they would ask for mum all the time. Bella couldn't sleep, got up and even asked the babysitter, you know, where mummy was. And I think because of that, they became part of mum, and they were all part of one big inconvenience, and they didn't love and admire him like they should have done. They admired her, so they were all lumped into the same basket, as it were. So we have the beginning of a different behaviour from Chris, which was also noted by Shanann's parents when he visited, where he's ignoring her. He's stonewalling. She's asking him questions. He's ignoring her. He's ignoring her face to face. He's ignoring her text messages and calls. He didn't respond as usual. So this is a bit crazy making. It's described as total left field by Shanann and her friends. It's you know, he's never behaved this way. They've never had a crossword. He sends her this bizarre picture of a doll with a twisted mat over its face, which I think he knew what that meant, and I think he got a bit of a kick out of it. Jameson, Chris Watts' friend, says that his family, which I think has got Chris family mixture, you know, of Shanann was conniving, shady, but admits twice within his interview with the police that he's never seen anything like that from her himself. It's always been what they've told him, the Watts family and Chris. So, and we also have the, you know, he wasn't checking on Shanann when she was poorly. She was up vomiting all night and he never checked on her. However, there's one of the reasons I think that this was planned, and one of the strongest reasons I think this was planned, is on the 10th of August, 3 days before she died, she said that she'd had the best talk ever with Chris. And he had agreed to read this book called Hold Me Tight, which Shanann had ordered from Amazon and had delivered to Chris, and she was reading it when she was away with her friends. So to her, it looked like there was going to be some progress and some promise there. Now, over the time she was away before she returned to her death, she was very poorly, very strung out, distraught that she was losing her marriage. Chris had said he wasn't going to go to counselling because he didn't want to sit on some couch with some man and just repeat what he'd said to her. He also spent $60 out for dinner with the mistress on the credit card, which is something he would never have done before, so she could see the payment. Let's just assume that we know that she could see the payment, and he knew that as well. And I think all of this was a systematic process of breaking Shanann down. He knew what our weaknesses were. He'd chosen not to press those buttons as a consequence, as time went by, because he was getting the narcissistic validation from her. And as soon as he didn't, as soon as he was done with her, this is what he did. He began to break her down. And the reason that he did this is A, because it's part of a narcissist pattern, and B, because it was going to enable him to do what he needed to do later. So Shanann is headed home. She's broken down. If you've seen anything in the case where she sends her friend a picture of her and she just looks drawn, desperately sad. Wrote Chris a letter saying how much she missed him and how much she missed him touching her and being close to her. She's extremely vulnerable. So she comes in through the door at 1:48, as Chris repeated, because he had it on his phone. And what I believe he did, even though there's a number of theories, I think there's a reason she's in her bedding, her nightie, in her pyjamas. She wore knickers and a t-shirt, and I brought her to bed apparently. And there was makeup on her pillow. And the reason I think she hadn't removed her makeup yet is because when she got home, Chris would have been full of apologies, all blah blah blah, and maybe asked her if she wanted a back rub, which is why she was on her front. And he took that opportunity to strangle her. I really do think he was that manipulative, and given Shanann's weakened state at the time and the fact that she very much desperately wanted to reconcile with him, I think it's very possible. But anyway, that is an opinion, but it is based on the conditions at the time. Anyway, we know that he murdered Shanann and the children. There has been some discussion about which one was which. I believe he did the children second, but only in case Shanann had asked to check on them or popped her head round the door when she got home, as you do when your little ones are asleep. So when he does this discard of his wife and children, who he no longer requires, who are no longer supplying him with admiration and love, blah, 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 we've been through that. He puts the children in bin bags and puts Shanann and the kids in his truck and drives them out to Survey 319, which he'd already arranged to be at the previous day by himself in the morning. Oh no, there's no point both of us going out there. Lol. He'd already told his close childhood friend, the one that his mother phoned, because that's completely normal, when there was Peanut Gate, and complained to him about Shanann. We already know that he's sort of denigrating about her as well, but he'd said that he'd texted him and he'd seen the other side of Shanann and he was done with her, and that was beforehand as well. So in his mind, all this behaviour that in the devaluation phase means that Chris knows where this is going. I think the reason that it all went wrong is because he didn't think things through. There were two things that he didn't bank on. He didn't bank on Nicole Atkinson and Shanann's other friends caring so much about her and finding her not contacting them so strange that they panicked, especially Nicole. And again, never said anything bad about Chris, but immediately sensed that something was up. And the reason that she sensed that something was up is because Chris didn't consider his own ineptitude. He didn't plan out the rest of this properly. I think it had something to do with Aspen. And I think that when he comes home, he goes straight into the garage and straight into the Lexus. And I'm thinking, what are you doing? You know, but I think he had Shanann's phone in the Lexus. And then he went through the house and hid it under the cushion where Nicky, Nicole's son, later finds it. And I completely think that he was planning on driving the Lexus to Aspen the following weekend when they were planning to go away, and maybe claiming they were lost. But he hadn't thought it through properly because I think he thought he had time. And I also think in his mind, because he's not dumb, he's good with numbers, figures, but he is a bit robotic. I don't think he has a social intellect, because all his life he's just been what people want him to be. So, and he can rehearse that and pretend to be that, work it out and do what is needed to be done. But now he's got to think on his feet. He didn't see that coming. In the discovery, the police officers say he doesn't show any empathy or worry or concern about his reaction is really strange. If you watch the interviews with him, you can see this, you know, I just want them back. I miss the kids throwing chicken nuggets at me. Who misses their kids throwing chicken nuggets at them? Saint Christopher, you know, Captain Personality. And it just, he lacks that charisma, those social skills to pull off this murder. If he'd had those, and if he had a little more time, he might just have got away with it. I think they would have got him eventually, but it would have been a lot longer before they got him. But as it happens, I think the reason that he killed her instead of divorcing her, because that's what he should have done, is because over the years we've established that he was angry with her for not respecting him like she should have done. And he became angry with the children because they didn't respect him and admire him like they should have done. And I think he just got very angry, and he didn't snap and go into a rage. It was a much, much longer thing than that, and over much more time. And I hope from the little actions that I've shown you, that becomes clearer, and that it becomes clearer that he had planned this. He knew that he was going to do away with his wife and children. And I think that the reason that he ran out is he just all his life he's pretended to be something he's not. And I think what happened was, when it came to the crunch, when he had to cover this up because he got caught too soon, I think it's like when you're on the boss level on a computer game and you know you're just there, nearly there, and the monster's got this much left and you just run out of life. And I think that's what happened to Chris Watts. And I'm glad it did, because now he's where he belongs. Thank you very much for listening. Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be. Hopefully one of those will apply, and I hope everybody's doing well. So let's talk about Mama Watts. Sorry the video's a bit late, I've had things happening. I won't go into it, but it delayed us a little while. But this one is going to be a longer one. So basically what I did was I tried to put my own feelings aside a little bit to look at the actions of this lady since the awful tragedy happened, and you know, we lost those souls from the world. And I just sat and made some notes when she was being interviewed for the first time, and also when she gave her statement at court. Other actions that she's taken and things she's done have occurred since, but are kind of associated with her, but not. I'm sure some of you will already know what I'm talking about, but we'll go into that in a bit. So we'll look at the interview first. This interview, they said that they didn't actually mean what they said in this interview at court, but some of the statements that were read out at court were also a little inaccurate as well. So she goes into how he loved sports, and he played basketball, baseball, football. He loved NASCAR, and then I had to bite my own internal voice saying it's a shame they didn't have some sort of Smother Olympics. Nothing could have predicted this, she said. Nothing could have predicted that this has happened, really. Because I went back to Shanann's texts between her and Chris, and one of the things that she mentions is, nobody protected you from your mum. Why would he need protecting from his mum? I'm just putting that out there. I don't know the reasons behind it, but it does seem like an odd thing to say that he would need protecting from her. Also, when Chris is in deep doo-doo, who does he contact to come and see him? His dad. He's closer than his dad, but who wouldn't want a mum there? Why didn't he want his mum there? You know, so we need to ask that. We need to ask questions about his background, because nobody is as perfect as Chris Watts is made out to be. You know, he's quiet, never got into any trouble, never did anything wrong, never spoke up. Or maybe that was the problem. Maybe he was afraid to. Anyway, so he worked as a mechanic and he got his toolbox, started collecting his tools, and he enjoyed it and he was doing well. You know, so that was his life pre-Shanann. And then when he meets Shanann, changing people's genders on video just suddenly. When he meets Shanann, he's obviously topping away as a mechanic, doing quite well there. And she mentions a few things he didn't like. I didn't like the way she spoke to him. She said he looked like a skater boy. This wasn't the kind of person she would normally date. To me, if somebody has a type and they take a deviation from the type and they say something in humour like that, it's generally a compliment, because it means that they're not the type of person I would normally date, but I like them so much that I'm with them anyway. You know, they have foregone all of the types that you had, any preconceptions that you thought of what you wanted, because they're the right one for you. And that's very much how it was possibly meant. She mocked him for not knowing how to do a lot of stuff. He doesn't know how to do this. He doesn't know how to do that. Maybe he didn't. But whose job is it to make sure that your kids are equipped to live out in the world, to be independent, to look after themselves? Whose job is that again? Also, another thing he didn't know how to do was speak up. I'm not doing very well at holding my feelings in here. I'll try a bit harder. I will get there in the end, I promise. He didn't know how to speak up for himself. He didn't know how to stay faithful. He certainly didn't know how to get a divorce, did he? So, you know, there is something to be said. There's a phrase of, what is it? I blame the parents. Well, I don't entirely, but there's nature versus nurture. Is it nature or is it nurture? I've always thought it was a bit of both. And a lot of people will share that mindset. And I think that's what it was here. So she said, you know, Shanann went on and on and on. Okay. Like, did she go on and on and on at the wedding you didn't attend? Did she go on and on at the 2 visits a year that you had? I could only observe he seemed anxious. He was at her beck and call. Okay, well, would you have a word? Instead of just going, oh, she's not right for you. You know, maybe you should talk to her. Instead of just sitting with that face that you were pulling in the interview, the first one, where it's just utter contempt for this dead girl.
Anyway, Bella was just like Chris. You said in your interview, and you said that, you know, Cissy was fearless. Not anymore, unfortunately. And they were wonderful. And it breaks my heart that they're not here. You have to say that it breaks your heart. Should it not really be obvious anyway? Why would you need to say that? You know, like you're saying, I feel so much. I don't need to say what I feel. Unfortunately, it just comes right out. But like the food goes right in. It's something I can't help. It's expressive. It comes from my soul or whatever it is that makes up me. Take up whatever belief system you want. Which is sort of 80% water and 20% chub. So, but anyway, moving on. And they called you Mimi, which is really sweet. But then you go on to say that a social worker said that the marriage sort of ended a long time ago. What has it got to do with a social worker? I would like to know the background behind that in all seriousness, because when was a social worker involved? What happened? And who was a social worker? I mean, they're wonderful people. They work really hard, but what information did they have other than the information you gave them? Same as other people had information you gave them. They didn't really know Shanann, but they'd heard loads of bad things about her. But they'd never actually seen her act that way. They'd just heard it. Where did they hear that from? Yeah, that was you. Anyway, so you didn't believe that Shanann had gone missing. You thought she was just trying to punish Chris. And you weren't worried. Not worried at all. Your granddaughters are missing. Your daughter-in-law's missing, but you're not worried. And even when the police came to search the house, you were like, okay, and you weren't worried. Okay. And then you might have got worried. You didn't express that you did, but you might have got worried when, you know, just tell Dad I need him. So Dad goes, because he didn't want you to go, did he? So Ronnie was all set to leave and he couldn't see him. So he went to see him and couldn't see him. And the public defender called him back to tell the horrible news that they'd found the bodies. And I'm going to say this because people are objecting to it, but you know what? That man rammed his daughter's bodies through an 8-inch hole into oil, and he heard one of them go plop. He knew how much further it was because the splash was different. And he says that with absolute clarity and not a touch of emotion. Oil. That'll make sense at the end of the video. Possibly makes sense to some people already. So he wasn't allowed any contact with the family. And you said that it was unbelievable what had happened. You know, so unbelievable. What is the way he disposed of them? So, and he says, why couldn't we write him a letter? Why couldn't you write him a letter? Because he's convicted. He's away to prison. He's about to be sentenced. The funniest part, it's not really funny, but it is, that she says, he was crying. Well, he wasn't crying, but you could tell that he was thinking about crying. You know, his lip was going. No, he wasn't crying. The only crying I've ever seen him do was for himself. Ever. At all. So he asked about the memorial and what pictures and what song, and he was trying to hold back the tears. I'm fairly certain he didn't have much trouble. And you don't like the way the case was handled, okay, that's not up to you. That's up to the state that Chris lives in to prosecute him for the dreadful crimes he committed. I know that's harsh, and I know you're his mum and you love him, but that's just the way it goes. It's like everybody, it's like they already knew that he was guilty. That's because he was guilty. He was very guilty. Even from the get-go, his whole behaviour, demeanour and everything gave him away. And you said, you want the truth. This is the thing. We're going to get to it now because I don't think that the truth is being handled at all. just in case. You know, you need a good at all in there. I haven't got enough likes, but I'm working on it. You know, they were saying that the crime is not condonable when they made that speech in court. Cindy, I have to say, looks a bit miffed when that solicitor's making a statement, the lawyer's making a statement. They said that the interview content wasn't their message, they were misinformed at the time, and they accept that it was his choice to plead guilty. Great start, and that he shouldn't have disregarded their bodies, and that he should be held accountable for his full confession and serve his sentence with dignity. And then, of course, Mama Watts makes her speech and says that she still loves him. She'll always love him unconditionally, and that she's struggling to understand, and that they'll remain faithful with that unconditional love. And that Ronnie says he believes he loves his girls. He knows he does. And he called Shanann beloved. She is. I'm not convinced it's by the person who said she just sits on her ass on her phone all day, but there you go. Anyway, so that's just a few notes that I took. There's not much there, to be honest. What the main issue is that we have now is, if, let's just say that Cindy's trying to heal, and she's at that stage of grief where you are up denial with a paddle. And she has around her people online, on the internet, that are telling her that what she thinks is right, and that Shanann deserved to pass away, and that she's calling little Nico the fetus, etc. And if this woman is trying to heal from this, then it is, you know, enabling her is not the way to help her with that. Because what will happen is it'll come to nothing. He's not getting out of prison. Ever. That's not going to change. He's not going to get an appeal and get out of prison because somebody said that, how do I put it, Shanann was controlling. That's just not going to happen. So all you're doing is exacerbating and stopping her from healing and stopping her from moving on. And if she is the one that's perpetuating this behaviour, then she's only doing harm to herself. And I think there's been enough people hurt by this. I don't know. I can't say 100% she's not genuine, but you say one thing. Remember how we talked about NLK and how she said one thing and did another? So we've got that he should serve out his sentence with dignity. Is this dignified? Is it? Hardly. And also, I know you said you'd never give up on him. I know that was probably a collective statement from both of you. You're his parents, and parents do often love their children unconditionally. And I understand that. I really do. But there comes a time when you need to accept what he did. And if he hasn't given a full confession, then he should have done. And if he hasn't, then he's just extending the pain for you and for everybody else, because the only person he cares about is himself.
My name is about to be slandered for probably a while. I don't know how long it's going to take to heal, but I would not be surprised if it's going to be hard to go out in public sometimes for a couple of years. And that really hurts me. I'm just like, this is a horrible, horrible thing. How dare you, and people aren't going to understand that. They're going to say, oh, you're the woman that had an affair with this man who took out his whole family. And I take a step back and it's just like, I didn't know!
Why do people hate NK? Let's have a look at why. First of all, we've got that she's got a voice that would remove Limescale. But that's neither here nor there, really. That's just one of those things. The real reason I think people don't like her is because what she says and what she does are two entirely different things. So therefore our narrative doesn't make sense and it makes her look guilty as sin. So let's have a look at what she says and what she does. We said that, but we do have some selective deletions, don't we? We have the can cops trace text messages, the difference between text message and text data, etc. All of those searches were deleted, so were you upset with them as well? I can see how it would be distressing to have to search for things on Google. I mean, I know there's some days I just can't be arsed. Okay, so I'm not 100% on this one, but I'm pretty sure that if you looked up the Facebook pages of Chris and Shanann on the 4th of August 2018, it was almost impossible for you not to know that Shanann was pregnant at that point, at the very least. So I'm not sure I believe that either. It doesn't really make much sense for the narrative. And I'm going to leave out the searching in 2007 because I'm not entirely sure that wasn't a typo on the discovery, but it doesn't really make any difference to what I have to say today anyway, so there you go. So no, because you went out for dinner to the Lizzie Dog and then back home for a bit of housey father on a night when his kids were home because he had to leave them with a babysitter to spend time with you. You also voiced your frustration a little bit that you had to wait for his kids to go to bed before you could speak to him. But, you know, don't let that get in the way of what you know, the other things that you said. You said that you didn't feel comfortable being in someone else's life, but you're all right to sleep with somebody else's husband. The two things are like so far apart from each other that you're saying one thing and doing another thing, and you're so far wrong you'd need a map to find your way back from that one. So nope. Really wanted him to fix it, and you never, you know, you distanced yourself from him. So, but you went on holiday to the sand dunes with him around about the end of July, which is when you said he was going to try and rekindle the flame with Shanann. Also, it's kind of hard to rekindle the flame with somebody when somebody's sending you multiple nude and semi-nude selfies, and also involving themselves in his dispute with his family regarding Peanutgate. So you said that you wanted him to fix it, but did you really? Because your actions don't indicate that you did. If you'd wanted him to fix it, you would have just made yourself gone out of that picture altogether. But you didn't. This might be my favourite claim of all. So you googled marrying your mistress, you googled man I'm having an affair with says he will leave his wife, you googled wedding dresses, and my favourite thing that you did that completely contradicts this statement is, yeah, you should pawn that ring, it's a nice rock. When she was missing. I think that speaks for itself. I don't need to say any more. I think I'm going to need a cup of tea in a minute. So you've got to have a 401k if you want to be with me. I need to know your credit is good. Your wife and kids are no problem. Okay. So the reason that everybody hates her is because of this dishonest behaviour. She does one thing, says another, And because of that, how can you believe anything she says? It makes her look dishonest. So because of that, we've got people who think that she was involved in the murders, etc. To be honest, there's not enough evidence to say that she was involved in the murders yet. There are no follow-ups done. There were questions that should have been asked that weren't. I can only assume that the police know what they're doing. However, I will say this. I don't think she was involved with the murders. Did she apply pressure to Chris to leave his family? Absolutely. We're not that serious, she said. But then she's Googling wedding dresses. And you know, the apartment was for him, not for me. Not for me. But she was going apartment hunting with him. Why would she need to do that? That seems like a very coupley thing to do. You know, you're getting together, you're moving in together, all of that stuff. So everybody's left a bit confused because we don't know what to think. Obviously, nobody likes a slapper, and she has behaved like a slapper. She knew that he was married. I also think she knew that he was pregnant. And one of the strongest reasons I think that is because she and Chris, at their interviews, both said exactly the same thing. And you know how she mentions, you know, I just had a few quick things to say to him before I cut him out of my life. They both said, well, if she'd known about this, she would never got involved with me in the first place. And it seems odd how they both said the same thing. I mean, it may mean that it's true, but it does seem to me like during those conversations towards the end there, they might have just been planning how to protect her and how to make her look less crap. It didn't work because now we've got a situation where because she wasn't honest, because she didn't tell the truth, people are now saying that she's possibly an accomplice or a murderer because she wasn't honest in the first place. If Nicole is involved with these murders, I'm sure time will catch up with her and we'll all know the truth eventually. If she wasn't, and she was just so ashamed of applying pressure to a married man, of being with a married man with 2 children and a pregnant wife, that she deceived and avoided the truth. You know, we've got the whole thing about, I can remember his macros and putting his macros into the phone, and I can remember how many pounds he lost, but I can't remember anything that I said on Sunday night. Selective memory. You know, and telling the police officer as well, you know, no. That's another thing both her and Chris both did. He went, no, God, no. No. Telling the police officer, oh, you know what, this is not about Sunday, we're talking about Saturday, just want to make sure you got your days right. That's a copper. Not just a copper, but an FBI agent, I think. And if that's the case, then, you know, just let them ask their questions. Don't tell them what they can and can't ask. Don't tell them who they can and can't speak to. You've kind of got no control over that. However, like I said, I'll end with this. I don't think she was involved, but mainly because despite really blurry pictures getting sent around the internet as proof, there isn't any that we know of that would absolutely nail it. But the reason that we suspect that she's involved is because from the first second she's been dishonest. Even in the first ever interview where, or maybe first or second interview where they met her at her place and it's just a recording, she's saying, you know, did you love him? No. But later on she says yes, and I meant it at the time. Again, we've got this sense of shame stopping her from telling the truth about what she's done. But is it shame because she's behaved like a bit of a strumpet? Or was it shame for other reasons? Hello! Thanks for clicking in. So today we're going to have a thorough look at the security footage from outside the Watts house. I wasn't going to do this, but the reason that I am doing it is because before I start, I wanted to get something out of the way. There are a lot of examples of things on YouTube that I've seen that are affected by the following phenomenon. Have a look at this, and then we'll do that, then we'll look at the video, and then I'm going to tell you what I think actually happened that night as Chris was packing his car. Right then, thank you very much for taking the time to watch that. It was just something I had to get out of my system. It's been with us since day one, since the first time I saw one of those videos. And if you don't believe me, have a crack at it yourself. Zoom right in on something on the video footage that you think you might have seen, and then, or that you didn't, just a patch of it randomly, and look at it. If you look at it for long enough, you're going to see something. That's what your brain does. So when I was looking at this footage, what I tried to do was try and avoid that completely. It'll happen to me as well. It happens to everybody. It's absolutely normal to think that you see things, and it's what your brain does. It tries to make sense out of things that it's looking at. So you're going to see something in it because there's nothing there for it to see. It's just the way it is. So when I was looking through the footage, what I decided to do, I'm not going to go through every little thing because that's dull, let's face it. So what I'm going to do is look at the examples of things that I thought were significant. But first of all, I'm going to share something with you that almost gave me a heart attack. Let's start with that. So right, at this point I'm freaking out and I'm thinking, oh my God, have I missed this all along? And then I thought, okay, chill. And I had a look at Nate's flag throughout the same time scale, because I was thinking it looks like the same person, but you see that one walks out and then another walks out, and I was completely doolally tap. Anyway, some would say that's a pre-existing condition, but so what I did was I focused on Nate's flag, and I'm going to show that footage for you now. And as you can see, there is a jump cut. You can quite clearly see both the flag and the plant move. So what then happened was I determined a place for where I was going to start the footage, which was at that jump cut.
Before I start looking up things of significance, what I wanted to do was just show you two pictures. These are just stills from the video. They're not very clear, as these things tend not to be, but they show Chris Watts walking out of the house and also walking past the near side of the truck. And I wanted to just point out that on both photographs he has the same outfit and footwear. It's not until later in the video, when he's been in the house for a while, that he finally comes out in his work boots. But he's wearing the same footwear. It's unclear if it's white trainers, white shoes, or actually socks that he's got on, but they are the same in both. Have a look. Okay, so the first thing of significance to me is that Chris often comes out of the house and then walks around the front of the truck to gain access to that side of the car's door. When he does, the light is reflecting in the wing mirror and flashing through the bushes, and then he'll walk back up into the house on the near side. So he goes down the far side and up the near side, and he does that quite a few times. If you watch the video yourself, you'll see him doing this, and I think it's just simple concealment. He knows what can be seen on Nate's camera, and I'll show you an example of when he forgot to do that in a moment. Just have a look at this one first though, because I think at this point what he's doing is he's prepping the car. So I don't think that he put the bin bags on Shanann's head and feet. I don't think that the children were in them either. I did initially, but I don't now, and there's a reason for that, but we'll get to that later. I think what he did was he laid the bin liners on the floor of the rear of the truck to place Shanann on. That's just what I think, but the reasons for that will become clear. But I think that's what he's doing during this process, so he can't be seen. He's aware that he can't be seen on Nate's truck if he goes behind that bush, and he'll walk round with something he probably shouldn't have, and then back round the front of the truck, and then put whatever he shouldn't have into that side of the truck. I don't know why that side of the truck. Could be there's something already in the far side of the truck and there isn't room, but he keeps doing this. So have a look at this clip. It's not the only time he does it. So, Mr. Watts, where would you like to put your petrol can? I know where I'd like to put it. This next clip shows him completely forgetting that he can be seen and putting the petrol can into the side of the car where the truck where he can be seen, and then worrying about that, going back into the house and going, oh no, I know what I'll do. I'll go back where the can't see is and I'll go round the truck and I'll put it in the other side. But then I believe he takes it out again because it does spend some time on the floor. The reason that I say that is not because I've imagined the shape of it, but because you can see a red bit under the truck. I think it's gone down under the floor, and I think later on when he's picking things up, I think that is one of the things he's picking up. He has anything that he's loading his truck with on the opposite side, on the far side. So have a look at this, because it is actually quite amusing to see the panic and the stupidity of this man. But yeah, you can see him, the panic in him, because he's realised he can be seen with this petrol can that he shouldn't really have. Now, I think that the most significant part in the video that I noticed was when he appears to be pulling something backwards out of the house. And he appears to be a little further away than he usually is. And the reason you know he's backwards is, well, was that a Freudian slip? The reason you know he's moving backwards is because you can see the light shine on his face. I will come back to the light later as well. You can see it shine on his face, and you know that he's pulling backwards, and he appears to be making that kind of movement. I'll show the clip for you a couple of times over, but it's probably best seen for yourself, because I've taken a shot of the corner of the video, but it actually looks better on the bigger screen. So please do have a look at it. So it's my belief that when Chris is doing this, he is pulling Shanann out to the car, out to the truck, and it's quite fast. And it seems to be that he's moved further away from the far side of the truck, but there is like a flat shadow. And what you'll find is every time that Chris Watts walks out of that house, the light is here. Okay, so Chris Watts comes out here, and what happens is, because Chris is between the light, the light, this is a terrible demonstration by the way, the light and, you know, in front of the light, every time the shadow of Chris comes that way, like that. Have a look at the video and just watch every time. And not once in the whole time I've looked at those did any of those look like children. There is one time where he's clearly stood there and then he bends down to pick something up, but it's just what he's loading in his truck. So he bends down to pick it up, but it's my firm belief that other than his deceased family, only Chris Watts is on this footage. So how did he get her out of the house so quickly? After he's done this, he then spends a minute at the cab of the truck. That's the longest that he spends down there. And I think what he's done is, I think there's something visible in the house that he used to move Shanann. At first I thought maybe a trolley or a wagon or something like that. But on the body cam footage there is a wheelie bin. What I call a wheelie bin, I don't know what other countries would call it. Like a large trash can with wheels on the bottom that you can tip up and pull backwards. And I think he'd put her in that to transfer her from the house to the truck. And then tipped her up into the floor of the truck. And that took him about a minute to do that, to tip her up into the truck. Sorry, I'm getting upset thinking about it. I'm trying to be objective. And then just immediately, he can leave that there, but I think he pulled it down the grass as well, rather than the path, because when you pull a bin along a path, it makes a loud rattling noise. Anybody who's taken that kind of bin out knows this. So I think he pulled it down the grass and then across to the truck. And I think that's how he got Shanann from the house to the truck. And another reason I think that is because you can see a wheelie bin in the garage with the lid off, which is weird because that would do my head in, having the lid off it. That seems quite spotlessly clean. And he had plenty of time after he'd done this to clean it. And the people who came in with the dogs noted that the house smelled like chemicals as well. So that could be part of the reason why. Like I said, it's just my opinion, but it's an opinion based on what I can see. So the last clip I'm going to show from this footage is when Muppet Boy, I call him Muppet Boy because he's just a puppet, just no emotion unless there's, you know, it's being operated or it's seen it somewhere else. He pops back to the house and I think he pulls the truck out of the house and realises that the garage door is shown open. Maybe gets an alert on his phone and has to go back to check it. It's still shown as open, but he has to check that it's locked because he doesn't want the house left open because, well, he's still got cleaning up to do. He's got things to do to hide his crime. I mean, he doesn't get to do those, thankfully. So in a nutshell, that's what I think happened. I think he used the bin liners to try and protect the floor of the truck. I think he used a wheelie bin to move Shanann out. And I think he put the children into plastic containers. And it could be very likely that he disposed of those elsewhere. It's a bit more difficult to hide a wheelie bin in a truck. But the little plastic containers, very likely not. So that's what I think happened. I don't think there's any accomplice in view on the footage, and I think if there was an accomplice left in the house, which is still a possibility, that they would have to have exited the house another way and possibly would have had a key to the property. The door or window that they left would have to have been closed from the outside. And that would have been something that Chris would have arranged with them. So I'm not saying that it discounts a possibility of an accomplice in this crime at all. What I'm saying is I don't think they're on the footage. In fact, you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb and say I know they're not on the footage. So anyway, that's my analysis of that security footage, that you've actually enjoyed my perspective on it, on this horrible tragic event. I understand that, and I hope that it's brought some clarity to the speculation on the footage and how we can see things that aren't there, and how I've tried to stay as subjective as possible from my perspective anyway. So I hope that's appreciated. Don't let this case get you down if you can. I know it's not easy. I know it's not, because I've been affected too. But you know what? It's not all bad. This young lady and our children have encouraged the rest of us to shine and appreciate every day and love every day. And every time I feel a bit blue or down, I'm now going to start thinking about how she lived her life, how full of joy those children and her looked. And I will never forget how Christopher Watts, and I think this is a Hamlet quote, I think it notes Macbeth, something about what he did to her in her last weeks. He put out the light and then he put out the light. I think he tried to put out a light the first time, and I really wish he hadn't the second. Anyway, there'll be a live tomorrow where we can talk about this, that or the other. You choose, we'll have a natter, and I shall see you then. But in the meantime, be as safe as you can be, and just stay wonderful. All right, bye-bye.
Watts was having an extramarital affair with a coworker. Nicole Kessinger says she had no idea he was married at first.
What did she know about you? Did she know you were married at first?
She did, once I showed her the pictures on my phone. On the home screen picture.
So was your wife in that picture, or was it just your girls?
It was just my girls right there, but my wife was the lock screen.
Oh.
So she knew I was married and my kids.
Okay.
He mentioned that he did have a significant other, and then he told me that those two were in the process of a separation.
When she realized that, okay, like she's the other person in the relationship, that, I'd always put my wife first over her, and that's what kind of made her take a step back a few times, and then I had to kind of calm her down.
Tell me about those times. What'd that look like?
So the first one was probably around July 4th when I had to leave her house. Because she wanted to kind of spend most of the day together before she went to a baseball game or something. And when I had to leave, it kind of just made her kind of take a step back and wonder what she was doing. And I just told her hey, just because of what's going, just because I had to leave doesn't mean you have to just take a step. I was comforting her at some point. I don't even know why I was doing it. Maybe I knew I was too far gone at that point, but it was.
Because this is Shanann's pissed. She's called you 10 times. You were sleeping. You had your day off, and then you go outside to talk to her on the phone and then tell Nikki that you need to go home just in case she calls back and all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what did she say to you, Nikki?
She was in the shower. She said, okay. And then that's when I talked about I calm her down, she's on the phone. So.
And was she we're breaking up, we're not gonna, I
No,
can't do this?
No, she said she didn't want to, she didn't think it was safe or it was good for us to see each other anymore that day, the rest of that day, just because of all that. And I'm okay, that's fine. And she asked me to come over later on after she got back from her baseball game.
It just seemed like he had so much going on, and it was just beautiful that I was like, why don't you just try this out, and see if you can fix it? And he'd always be like, well, what about us? What about us? I'm like, don't worry about us. That is more important. Try to see if you can salvage whatever it is that you have going on with your wife.
That's when Nikki told me she told her friends about me. And I just figured, they'd probably look me up on Facebook and see that I was pregnant. If Nikki already knew probably already, but I just, the reason why I did that.
Found out that his wife was pregnant.
And yes.
And you did not know that prior?
No.
And you found that out via the newspaper articles, and that caused you concern?
Well, I just realized that he was lying to me, and I was like, well, if you can lie to me about this, what else are you lying to me about?
I was there at her house pretty much every night. So it was like I didn't have that time at home just to really think about anything. Because literally I didn't, like I was only at home from like when I got home from work, I worked out, I ate dinner, and then I went over to her house. Like I never slept in my house like the whole month of July.
Like, yeah, we talk about the future. I think all couples do talk about the future, but it was never like, hey, I'm like leaving her, we're gonna get a house together, you're moving in with me. It was never like this, like very forward thing. And and I even told him, I was like, if we're gonna build a relationship, one thing is that if you're getting a divorce, you've been married for a long time, I think it would be wise for you to spend a lot of time on your own.
Only the names have been changed. Only the names have been changed.
So why do people act in such a terrible way, defaming the dead, victims of a terrible crime? It didn't make any sense. So I looked into it. So it takes more than one occurrence to make a nightmare. What we've seen is defaming of the victim and her family from several sources, including Facebook groups and YouTube channels. So what kind of person defames the dead? Why did they do it? The only real scientific explanation I could find was the just world hypothesis. This is the idea that people need to believe one will get what one deserves so strongly that they will rationalise an inexplicable injustice by naming things the victim might have done to deserve it. This is also known as blaming the victim, the just world fallacy, or the just world effect. So why do people believe in this? Well, there's the fear of facing vulnerability. People do not like to think about themselves as being the victims of a violent crime. So when they hear about one, they tend to blame that event on the victim's behaviour. This allows people to believe they can avoid being victims of a crime just by not being like that victim. It also minimises anxiety. It helps to make them feel safe. In a world where other people are completely responsible for their misfortune, people go on believing that the world is fair and just. So an example of just world would be, because it's far too frightening for many to accept that bad things can happen to good people, and therefore they themselves have no control over whether bad things might happen to them someday, they will instead search for ways to differentiate themselves from victims of ill fortune. For example, an outsider might deride a person whose house was destroyed by a tornado, blaming them for choosing to live in a disaster-prone area, or for not building a stronger house. So believers in Just World were also found to have fairly harsh and hostile attributes and delinquent intentions. Additionally, they feel less of a need to engage in activities to change society or alleviate the plight of social victims. So this was based on an experiment by Melvin Lerner and Carolyn Simmons in 1965. One of these involved shocking a participant in a study. The subject plays the part of an innocent victim being shocked against her will. People observing this formed a much lower of opinion of them than people who weren't observing it. This was to draw a line between her fate, which was the shocks, and her character. They felt that she deserved it because that gave them comfort. If she deserved what she's getting, then that absolves them of blame for that. The study also suggests that this intolerance for suffering is only applied to other people and not the Just World hypothesis believers themselves. Funny that. So what happens when somebody with Just World hypothesis has to leave their comfort zone and a terrible murder occurs? where someone who seems to be a happy family man murders his beautiful wife, 2 gorgeous daughters, and their unborn son. How does that compute with people who believe in just world? Well, of course, they lay the foot at the victim. Because it would be unseemly to blame the children, that blame ended up with Shanann. So in amongst our combination of people involved in the defaming of Shanann Rozak, we also have our flying monkeys. I've discussed flying monkeys before, but it is a term to discuss the hangers-on of a narcissist who support and defend everything they do. And like the Wicked Witch of the West's flying monkeys in The Wizard of Oz, they are brainwashed minions that carry out the narcissist's bidding. Also, often narcissists themselves, they deliberately go out to ensure that only their opinion is the right opinion. So what do we end up with? We end up with a group of just world believers who think that everybody gets what they deserve. And we also end up with, in this little group, of flying monkeys who don't give a monkeys about our just world believers, but will manipulate them to make them think their opinion, and only their opinion, counts. We then get an example of groupthink. So when we all agree, when we are happy with that agreement, we typically don't want to hear opposing arguments. That's what's known as groupthink. It can lead to impulsive decisions and a failure to identify and or consider all sides of an argument. If the group is cohesive, they agree on most issues, they tend to stifle dissent because group harmony is the anticipated outcome. So, because of groupthink, people can become desensitized by witnessing the actions of their group, and that normalizes a behaviour. In a group with a good leader, this can be a positive thing, but with a bad leader, not so much. People can assume that someone else will speak up because there's so many people in that group, so nobody says anything at all. And by staying in their group, it can appear to one person that they are in a majority, giving them a confidence to say unpleasant things they wouldn't otherwise say. So then we end up with a delightful combo of just world believers, flying monkeys, and groupthink. Oh, and don't even get me started on the Dunning-Kruger effect. Just let me say, if somebody has to tell you how smart they are, they're probably not that smart. Just saying. So while these people have reasons for acting the way they do and saying the things they do, most of us, well, let's face it, we just think that. So this isn't the only reason though that people say defamatory things on YouTube. One of the reasons is outrage clickbait. YouTube is a war for your attention. We want you to come and see our videos. We want you to engage with our channel. And the reason that some people say horrible things is because they want you to click that video. Did you know that outrage is the second highest common cause for things being shared in email? People aren't silly. They know this. This is why they make these titles for their videos. This is why they make videos about horrible things. So you will be angry and you will watch it, become enraged, and then watch the next one and the next one. Emotion is a huge reason to click on a video. The bigger the emotion is, the more you click. So provoking outrages causes more clicks, which means more money for that creator and more engagement for that creator. So did this change my opinion of what I've seen? Absolutely not. Do I think there's a justification for it? Absolutely not. But there is good news. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what those people say. We see the light that shone from Shanann. We appreciate her. We support the Rozaks. I am one of many creators, and other people are one of thousands upon thousands who support the Rozak family. And I made myself a promise that I will not be involved with anything that's toxic. So this is the last I will say about these people. Anyway, I hope this helped explain things a bit more. Do be wary of being deceived. I'm going to look at that in the next video. Bye for now. Look at how reliable sources are when it comes to YouTube.
You really think someone would do that? Just go on the internet and tell lies?
We're going to look at what some creators may be doing to get your attention. What they might be doing to hold your attention, and also who you can really trust when you're watching YouTube. The answer might not be what you think it is. While you're here, leave a like and subscribe for more content like this, including caterwauling, crazy lives and true crime coverage. So a lot of people have said, oh my God, it's all so confusing. This creator says that and this creator says the other, and it's all too much and I don't know who to believe or where to go or where to turn. What's your opinion on this creator? So rather than calling out anybody, what I'm going to do, it's not my style, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what I do if I'm watching a video that I think may have dubious content, and the way that I try and figure out if it's reliable or not. The first of all, the things I look at when I'm looking at a video and thinking, is this true? Is what's the source of the information that they're telling you? Is it a website, a government website? Is it the discovery documents for a case? Is it an interrogation video? Is it a filmed section of a trial? What is it? And then once you know that, that can help to verify the information that they're giving you. However, if they say, well, it's true because I said so, or I heard it from my Uncle Bob, who heard it from my Auntie Margaret, who heard it from me and her Aunt Vera, then it's likely not true. Very likely. So that's the first way of trying to verify what somebody's telling you on YouTube is true. The second thing that I use is, what's the agenda of the channel that I'm watching? What is the agenda of that creator? For instance, in this video, I'm helping to tell you what I do to try and verify sources on YouTube if I'm watching a YouTube video. I'm also in the hope that you can then use those things to do the same thing. And obviously break down the confusion that people have been passing on to me that they have. So that's the agenda for this video. However, everybody's biased. Everybody. That's just the way it is. Everybody has an opinion, and it's very difficult to keep that all to yourself. That is going to appear in some of what you create. It's part of that artistic process. So what is the agenda of the creator that you're watching? What do they want to do? Do they want to make money? Do they want to just share information about crime? Do they want to share information generally? Do they want to increase their channel and views and likes? What is the agenda behind what that creator's motivation is? Why are they a creator? And what's the likelihood it's true is number 3. So are there multiple sources that say something similar or that can support that same information? That increases the likelihood that it's true. I'm talking about the sources that we mentioned previously, such as discovery documents, etc. So if they have supporting information, they're more likely to be true. Is the creator known for reliable information? There's quite a lot that I can think of that are. Do you trust that creator? Have they told you the truth previously? Always best to go on that. That's a really good way of thinking about it. Also, if a site can give you sources and encourages you to go and look at them yourself, that's likely a reliable source as well. So those are the 3 main ways that I look at videos and decide if that source is reliable.
When you click on a video, it's most likely because, most of the time, it'll be because the subject interests you. So whatever case that may be, if it's about growing flowers or pussycats or whatever interests you. However, a way to drive people to click things they wouldn't normally click really is by causing an emotional reaction in you. So if you see something and it's either really happy or really angering, you're more likely to click on it. People tend to be emotionally driven. So, and that was found in a study at a university. I've put the details in an article down below, and they found that it didn't make any difference whether it was really happy or really anger making. And it's much easier to make an angry thumbnail, something that'll make somebody angry, than it is to make something that'll make somebody happy. Strange that, but that it does work. So now we're going to look at what you do once you're on that creators platform. There are some danger signs. There are, quelle surprise, some narcissists on YouTube. Who'd have thought? And I have seen some concerning behaviour. So what I'm going to do is give you the warning signs of when you are being gaslighted by a creator, so that you can look after yourself.
So let's have a look at some common gaslighting techniques. If you see any of these from a creator, it's a bit of a warning sign. So they tell you and others that you're crazy and triangulate. So what that means is they turn other people against you, make sure that nobody takes you seriously. It comes in handy later if you don't do what you're told, and then they decide they want to kick you to the curb and punish you. Being around a gaslighter makes you confused and puts you off kilter. There's no surety in anything, and you're always confused, and you're walking on eggshells around them and frightened to annoy them. That helps them to control you. And aligning in isolation, they'll make sure that you rely on them and them alone. Make sure that you don't have anybody else to turn to for information. And speaking of information, they'll tell you that everyone else lies to you. Everyone else is a liar. Only they can be trusted. Only they have the correct information, which usually isn't correct information at all. They will deny they've said or done things, even though you've seen them do them with your own eyes. They'll make you question your reality and doubt yourself and just take on their reality. Projection is another thing that they'll do. The poor qualities in them, they will project onto others. For instance, they'll accuse you of being a narcissist. They'll accuse you of being deceptive. They'll accuse you of trolling, because that's what they're doing themselves. And their actions do not match their words. Look at what they're doing, not what they're saying. It's what they're doing that matters. Beware of tribe gaslighting. This means that when you say something that doesn't agree with their status quo, the group of people will question your reality, even though you're perfectly entitled to feel how you do. Rather than accept how you feel, they will dismiss it. So don't take your vulnerabilities to those people. Find better people who will listen to you, and don't let anybody make you question your reality and what you know. It's cruel.
It's not a good behaviour to have in anybody, let alone in a creator that you're watching. So who can you trust on YouTube? Well, the easy answer is you. You are bright, intelligent, fun and wonderful, from my experience of you. So make up your own mind. If a creator has a bias, you share that bias. If you think that a creator is lying to you, do not watch them. If you think that a creator is clickbaiting you by making you angry, then watch them or not. I'm telling nobody what to do, but what I am saying is it's your choice what you watch on YouTube, and I think it's a great thing to be able to apply our own knowledge and also our intuition
if something's not quite right, if we feel that something is wrong, but we don't know why, that's probably a warning sign that that's not the creator for you. However, if you feel like you're at home and you trust the creator, that is the creator to be watching. This applies to all creators on the platform. So if you want, leave a comment down below to let me know what you think. Do you feel that you can now look at things more objectively? Do you feel that things are less confusing after watching the video? Is there anything else you'd like to see? Is there any further information that you want? I have, in addition to the sources, left a mystery link down below, and I'll be leaving one in each video. So if you want to click on that, feel free to do so. It'll always be a surprise, and you be as safe as you can be, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.